Don't get used to the tie, it's not gonna stay. I've seen lots of them in my closet. Let's read a bar station.
No, Jason. Yeah. Maybe we take it out of order.
Jump right in, huh? I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for February 14th, Valentine's Day. I'll stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a roll call.
Yes, Commissioner Donaldson,
Here.
Commissioner Geeson Fields, Commissioner Minotti,
Here.
Chair Kent.
Here. So ex parte communications disclosure. Ex parte communications include verbal and written communications between individual commissioners and a party with a real interest in a pending commission decision. Any exposures?
None for me. Nope. Nope.
Thank you. Now we'll move down to the consent calendar. The consent calendar items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. By approval of the consent calendar, the staff recommendations will be adopted unless otherwise modified by the City Council. There will be no separate discussions on these items unless a council member or a member of the audience requests removal of the items from the consent calendar. Is there anyone from the audience that wants to remove an item from the consent calendar? Is there anyone from the commission that wants to, has a question or?
Nope. I just had that small change on the minutes, and I want to make sure that get reflected.
Yes, we received your comments, yeah. Mhm.
Thank you.
If it pleases the chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
It will?
And all, what were the changes in the minutes? That's on the consent calendar.
Under the last consent calendar, page 1, line 25, I just wanted them to add a framing that I was asking about the consistency with the economic development strategy that the city was adopting.
Is that reflected in the meeting minutes that we had access to, or is that
This
since?
January 24th meeting minutes,
Yeah.
line 25, page 1?
It wasn't in there, so I asked that they
Okay.
just
Oh, okay.
make that addition. So,
Oh, okay, so you want to add that in? Okay,
yeah.
okay. Well, with that change, then, I'm happy with moving the consent calendar and the minutes, which are part of it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Opposed?
okay,
It's passed.
okay.
I'll move on to the agenda items. First is, oh, sorry, right, that's, yeah, this is public comment.
Public
Yeah.
comment.
Public comment period. This is for persons desiring to address the commission on an item that is not on the agenda. Please note that the speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The Brown Act limits the commission's ability to take action or discuss the items unless they are on the agenda. Therefore, such items are normally referred to staff for comment or for a future agenda. So is there anyone from the public that wants to address the commission on an item that's not on the agenda? Crickets, good. We'll move on, thank you. So next item is discussions, let's have a staff presentation on PA 18004.
Good evening. Once again, this is Planning Application 18004, Design Review, Parking Reduction, and Variance for 1040 Key Route Boulevard. Some background on the property. The subject site is a 3,520 square foot lot with an existing 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 1,083 square foot home built in 1942. City records show the following repair work done to the home: fire repair, electrical rewiring, termite repair, and tile replacement.
Is it possible to,
Can you get that on the agenda, on the screen?
Apologies.
Yeah. Oh, mhm. Oh,
One moment. There we go.
okay.
Here's the street view of the property as it looks today. And here's the APN map showing the atypical lot size with 64-foot width. Project request. The applicant is seeking design review for a 385 square foot single-story addition, a parking reduction to waive one required off-street parking space triggered by with the proposed addition, and a variance to horizontally extend the existing non-conforming east wall, which is 6.77 feet from the front property line, and to horizontally extend the north wall as well, which is 4 foot 1 inches approximately from the property line. Here's an existing elevation, and here's what's proposed. Recent review. The project was last reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission at the January 24th, 2018 meeting, the last meeting. The applicant's original request included design review, parking reduction, and a conditional use permit to extend the non-conforming front wall. The existing non-conforming north wall cannot be extended horizontally as the zoning code does not allow horizontal extension of the non-conforming wall. During the meeting, staff recommended that the project could be approved with the conditional use permit subject to the conditions of approval that the proposed north wall
of the addition be set back 5 feet from the northern property line in order to maintain compliance with residential site regulations. The requested conditional use permit will only allow horizontal extension of the proposed east wall and not the north wall per the Albany Municipal Code. And then we have the code section right here, section 2024-020, table 2A, footnote 19, which shows that. The commission expressed that such a strict interpretation of the site regulations rendered the proposed project architecturally inconsistent in form, and inquired of staff if there was an alternative which would allow for the project to remain intact. Staff indicated that a variance was the only way to approve the project as presented. The applicant and the property owners agreed that we could come back with this project and a variance in order to get it approved. After conferring with the city attorney, it was determined that the most legally sound review should be a variance to allow the extension of both the north and the east walls. A new notice was prepared and sent out for design review, a parking reduction, and a variance of the project. Variance, in regards to the east wall, a variance is required to extend the existing non-conforming east wall horizontally. The east wall is located 6.77 feet from the property line, where 15 feet is required. This wall is proposed to be extended 9 feet 8 inches approximately to the south. This results in a conforming side yard setback of 5 foot 1 inches. In regards to the north wall, there's an existing non-conforming north wall, which is 4 feet 1 inches from the property line, where 5 feet is required due to side yard setback regulations. The applicant is proposing to extend the wall 3 foot 9 inches to the west. A variance is also required to extend this non-conforming wall horizontally as well. And this diagram shows both of the walls that are in question right now. Parking reduction. There is an existing single-car garage attached to the dwelling unit that is proposed to remain. The applicant is seeking a parking reduction to waive one of the off-street parking spaces triggered with the proposed addition. Correspondence is received. Staff has received one correspondence at the last hearing as part of the initial public notice for the 1/24/18 hearing, requesting that the parking reduction be denied due to parking constraints on Key Route Boulevard in general. This letter was included in the commission packet, and then this last point's not true because we received today the same correspondence voicing the same concerns about parking on Key Route, and that was included at the binder in the back as well. The project is categorically exempt from CEQA, and recommendation, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission review and approve the proposed project subject to the findings and conditions of approval. That's it.
Any questions from?
No questions? No.
I have a question on the findings. Maybe we can wait to discussion, but maybe I should bring it up now. One of the findings is number 2. Well, I think it's better, it's a discussion, so let's bring it up later.
Okay.
So let's move on. Does the architect want to come up and present the project?
Jason called us for Joan and Vernon Chapman, 1040 Key Route. Pretty much we presented the project last time, and I think I presented a fairly thorough description in my trying to make findings for the project based on the 5 findings that are required. And principally, what we're asking for is, because the lot is the 64 by 55, if you apply the 20-foot rear yard and the 20-foot front yard setback and the 5-foot sides, because you're obliged to provide at least 10% of the lot width, that's what's triggering the variance, the 64-foot width of the lot. But the lot itself is 3,520 square feet, and if you were to apply the contemporary ordinance standards to it, you'd end up with 810 square feet of building footprint. That would also include, building footprint that would conceivably handle a car. So when you take 810 square feet and let's just say take 200 square feet away, 10 by 20, you're left with a 610 square foot footprint. That seems to be extraordinarily small. I don't think I work on too many projects where there's a 610 square foot footprint that is the legal boundary of what can be developed. So automatically, when we're asking for something more than that, we're going to be, I think, in a variant situation. We're going to be at odds with the ordinance that was adopted, simply because the lot configuration, it's not just the 3,520 square feet, but it's how it's oriented. And all of the, well, I shouldn't say all of the houses, but a dozen houses on this side of the street on this block and also on the next block all have a very similar pattern of development. And they all used a pattern where they tucked the houses or snugged the houses closer to key route in order to create 20-foot backyards. The side yards are non-conforming. Most of the side yards are non-conforming already. So again, when we think about, well, how would we add to this house? We certainly could add up, but these very small houses, they're barely 2 rooms wide. The rooms that are towards the street side tend to be bathrooms and closets, and then the rooms of some dimension are the rooms towards the back, towards BART. And as a result, I don't think there's one house on this block that has been extended vertically. And when I look farther down Key Route, you can see that there have been a few houses that have attempted upper story additions in order to deal with this notion of, well, if I'm not allowed to build laterally into the yard, then I have to build up. And you see, as compared to other locations in Albany, very little development on Key Route. I think Key Route presents a special case also because the houses have one aspect that looks right out on the Ohlone Greenway and also on the elevated BART. And when I talked about the areas that we are asking the variance for, at first we thought we could do the conditional use permit for the lateral extension of the front setback. But if the determination is that requires a variance, other houses on the block already enjoy that kind of use of the front, the reduced front yard. And then other houses on the block also enjoy the reduced side yard, including reduced side yards that go deeper into the lot, including the property immediately to the south. The height of the building wall that we're asking for this effectively, we're talking about a piece of universe that is less than 12 inches north-south and less than 4 feet east-west. So we're talking about something that is an eighth of the sheet of a plywood. And it is less than a sheet of plywood high. The pitch height of that portion that we're adding to is the garage that's a slab on grade with a laundry behind it. So when we consider the impact of the mass, the building mass, I find it de minimis. I think it doesn't show up in the streetscape. I think you'd be hard pressed to see it even standing at the little wooden gate that's to the right of the driveway. If you sort of peered down this 4-foot alley, I think you'd have a hard time seeing the piece of universe that we're asking for this variance. On the other hand, that's in the front is very self-evident. It's this portion here, and I think we integrated it rather nicely with the existing building forms. And again, if we go down the street and we see the other, there are 5 or 6 or 7 twins of this house, and then there's another house plan that has the same site planning, building footprint, massing strategy. It's just a different plan. And then in the next block, I didn't present this, but in the next block to the south, there are also more of these houses. And when we look at the Sanborn Fire Insurance maps and we look at the Google Earth and do a sidewalk survey, we see narrow side yards that are less than the 10% rule. So on all of those points, I think you can make a finding that this is a really modest request and not something that I think sets you up for establishing precedents in other situations where there are not these hardships and not these conditions.
Okay, I guess I have a question then, because on 2, I totally agree. I think it fits all, but on 2, I think we're including, you have 2 items. One, the location of the building footprint on the lot is already kind of violating the setback.
Right.
which alone, that's, to me, that works right there. But then it goes on to say the lot and the width, street orientation of this lot would not allow a similar amount of ground floor area built if it was oriented the other way,
Yes.
which I don't think is accurate. Because if you have a 3,700 square foot lot with a 65 by 55, if you were to reconfigure that same amount of square footage on a 50 by 70 foot lot, you would get pretty close to the same, you get close to like I think I did the calculation at 1,400 square foot. Whereas what we're now doing here is allowing a 1,600 square foot. So,
I guess you're right. It's pretty close to the same. I think it's.
yes, but the precedent of the second half is what bothered me. I think the first statement is right, it could stand alone. Location of the building footprint on the lot, it's already put in front, so it makes sense to do the variance.
It's
based
not
on
an
that.
insignificant difference. It's 1080. If you orient the lot 64 by 55, you apply 5-foot side yards, you get a 45-foot width, and you take 20 away front and back, you end up with 24.
I think it's 15 from the front, isn't it? 15 from the front.
Is it 15 from the front?
15 front,
Well,
yeah.
then I didn't apply that in my other calculation.
And that's what I was going to ask.
Oh, I
About the
see.
650
I see.
was throwing me
Front
off.
yard and-
Yeah, I misapplied the front yard. So let me just do the quick math on that. Then that would be 35 less 55, so it would be 20. So it would be the same.
Yeah.
It would be exactly the same.
So,
be
so
10
the
would be-
second part of that doesn't hold up.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
wipe that out. I agree. It's because I misapplied the 20. Thank you. It's
All right.
15.
Any other questions?
No, but I say, aside from that error, I do want to say, Jason, that I thought your presentation last time was really outstanding and really presented the issues that you were having to deal with very well for us. I really just want to compliment you on that, that's all. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So barring any other questions, I think you can sit down. Any comments from the public on this project?
No speaker cards.
No speaker cards, okay.
Okay.
So we'll bring it back to the commission for conversation. Any discussion?
I would just say, I think we discussed it at length last time. They kind of made the recommendation, or followed with the recommendations, was I would be ready to move the item when you're ready.
Yeah, I'll just throw out 2 cents. Sorry to cut you off, Doug. Yeah, I think we did discuss it at length last time, but I do think the additions have been done in an architectural manner that blends well with the existing aesthetics of the building, and the massing of the additions seem very much in proportion to the existing building and the neighborhood context. So. Yeah, so I think the addition is an attractive addition, and in terms of the variance, they are existing walls that are already non-conforming, and there is a bit of physical spacing between the adjacent property lines. So I'm confident, or I have no regrets in approving a variance if it comes to that.
Sounds good.
Okay, I will say that I'm prepared to move planning application 18004, design review, parking reduction and variance for a single-story addition at 1040 Key Route Boulevard. And in doing that, I'll comment that I also have considered the parking reduction, and I think that I do not have a problem doing the parking reduction for this project on this case. And I acknowledge we have received several comments that are concerned about that. Okay.
Can I add that we strike the second half of the findings on number 2, where we're just finding preservation of property
Is
rights?
that a part of the findings, or is that a key part of the findings?
Yeah, it's one of the 4 that we have to agree. But of that, number 2, there's 2 arguments there. I think we just leave the first argument and cross the second argument.
Okay.
So if we're
Quick
looking
sense.
at page 17, which is the attachment to your report, the findings
Yeah.
for variance approval, just to make sure that we get this right, can we walk through this
It's
together?
page 6.
Page
I think
17
it's
are the
same.
findings.
I think it's duplicated, right?
It's duplicated,
it's
so
the
it's
same.
Okay,
same
all right.
language.
So on number 2,
Chris, can I make one
Yeah.
comment about that issue?
sure.
Just looking at the math on that, I think you can keep it. The buildable lot area on a lot that would be 64 wide and 55 deep would be 1080 square feet, because you'd subtract 20 from the rear, 15 from the front, 5 from each side. You'd end up with a 54 by 20 footprint. That's 1080. If you pivot it, you would have a 20-foot rear yard, a 15-foot front yard, leaving a 29-foot deep segment. You'd have a 55-foot wide lot, taking 5 off from each side, so you'd have a 45 by 29. That's 1,305 square feet, so it's not an insignificant difference. It's 225
Yes,
square
but
feet.
the difference, right, but what the difference here is the building's already over the line, so you're asking a variance to continue that.
I see.
And whereas we just
I
stick,
see. That aspect is the same between the two examples.
yeah.
I see. Okay.
It's a subtle, it's a
Yeah,
very
yeah,
subtle
no,
thing,
no,
but I didn't want
no,
to.
on that point, yes, I see it now. I was thinking just that it makes the greater argument that, you know.
It still can
Yeah.
apply, yes,
Okay,
it can still can apply, right, yeah.
Chris, if there's an error in the staff report, I don't think that's so important. I think it's the findings that we're approving. We're not approving the staff report.
Well, it is a
It's the same
finding.
think, I think.
It's a finding. It's-
So if
That
it's,
says finding, but that's in the staff report. The findings are on page 17. And I don't think they have the same language.
It's different.
Or maybe they do have the
They
same,
It's a
do have
finding
the-
for the parking.
they do have the same language.
the same language,
Yeah.
okay. Then I'll stand corrected. We should correct the findings
So
then.
can you, sorry, read the part you want to strike?
All right, so on page 6 is what I'm looking at. Item-
Chris, work on page 17, because that's the finding where we have to adopt, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, good, thanks. Thanks, Doug.
I think it's the same language, I'm not sure, might be.
Yeah, due to the vocation, yeah. All right, so due to the age of the home, the location of the building footprint on the lot, that to me is a very significant finding. The building's already placed over the line.
Right.
So we're just dealing with that. Then it goes on to say, and is where I have a problem, that applying the current zoning ordinance to the shallow depth of the lot and the width to the street orientation of the lot would not allow a similar amount of ground floor area building footprint that lots oriented narrow side to the street do. And if you do the math, it's not really a true statement. It's very close, very small. And that other properties that predate the adoption of the ordinance, and that also, of course, things that predate the ordinance are going to be different. It's called grandfathered in. Also enjoy existing legal nonconforming side yards with building footprints that are yet deeper into the lot area and larger. So I would just like to cross that whole after and cross that whole thing out. I don't think it's necessary.
And just simply strike the rest of the language that's in the finding?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have to make the finding that that the strict application of this chapter deprives such property and privileges enjoyed by other property in the vicinity, and I think that's why we need to I think that's why it's important to keep in that idea that other lots on this block
Enjoy
have
existing.
to have those same
But it's not saying, okay,
issues.
it's saying
Have those same
vicinity.
issues.
Yeah, it's not specific, though. It's saying vicinity. So now we're saying that lots that are small automatically.
No, I don't think so.
I would take it as lots that are small with houses that predate the adoption of the ordinance.
And lots that are wider than they are deep. That's the issue. That's what's unique.
And that's where when
Along
I
this
did the math,
section
I
of Key
didn't, I
Route.
didn't see a big difference when I did that.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm glad you made the calculation, but
I mean, it just as a,
yeah.
All right, I just want,
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessary, but if you think it's necessary to have, in order to do the finding, I'm okay with keeping it. But to me, just the fact that the house was built over this 20-foot, the 15-foot setback was enough to say, okay, it's already in a violation, and it doesn't make sense to not extend that wall out.
I agree with that point. I would also, I guess I personally would say that if we strike the language from the first and to the second and, so we're basically keeping the first provision and we're keeping the last provision that talks about other properties enjoying the same
That's right. I like that.
sort of
And
non-conforming.
that other properties are predate, okay, yes, yeah, that does make sense, because,
So we'll basically get rid of the language that talks about if it was a
Yep.
different
So just for
oriented.
clarification, due to the age of the home, the location of the building footprint on the lot,
And that other,
and that other properties that predate the adoption of the ordinance also enjoy existing legal non-conforming side yards, that's
Yeah.
okay for the commission?
I'm okay with that.
It's
Okay.
really like a 10, 8, my calculations are like 10 square feet or 20 square feet difference, but it was, to me, it's such a small difference that we couldn't.
Okay, well, I don't know, did someone second?
um,
And-
No.
Yeah, anyway,
I'll
I'll
second
accept, I'll accept the changes that Chris offered
okay,
to my motion anyway.
okay, I'll second Commissioner Donaldson's motion with the friendly amendment from Commissioner Kent.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Then application PA 18-004 has been approved. There's a 24 day?
14 day
14-day
appeal period.
appeal period.
Okay, you're good. Great.
Second item on the agenda is PA 18-011. Could we have a staff report on that?
Yes, good evening. Before you tonight is a conditional use permit and design review request for 1039 Evelyn. The subject property is a 5,000 square foot lot with an existing 1,262 square foot, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home that was built in 1925, substantially added to in 1947. Based on the city's records, that addition, which is on the north side of the property, was approved with a 2-foot 6-inch side yard setback, which is non-conforming by today's standards. More recent history in the property, the applicant, current applicant, many years ago in 2000, applied for a conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit. At that time, there was significant neighbor opposition, and no formal action was ever taken on the application request. This is how the house appears today. It's the White House in the middle. A more recent background for you. The applicant applied and received approval for an attached ADU in June of last year. A building permit was issued for the ADU and for interior remodel work in August of 2017. The plans originally indicated that existing non-conforming wall was to remain in place. After a closer review of the plans and the site, the following was revealed. The existing non-conforming wall on that north side was completely reconstructed in the non-conforming location. The roof height form increased from the previous existing conditions, and I'll show you an illustration shortly that highlights that difference. There was a garage and workshop that was attached to the back of the home. That was demoed out and raised to create newly conditioned space. So effectively, the garage was a 2-car attached garage, 411 square feet in area, and a workshop of 388 square feet that became part of the main dwelling living quarters. So it increased the habitable space within that existing building envelope. The envelope didn't expand. It was an interior remodel. So in December, and then again in early January, we received some inquiries from adjacent neighbors regarding concerns of the height and a lack of formal planning process. After digging in a little bit deeper to this, we realized that there was an error in the application processing and that this should have been processed as a design review and conditional use permit request much earlier on in the process. Subsequently, the applicant ceased construction in mid-January and began working with staff and adjacent neighbors to identify the project concerns, craft revised plans, and ultimately file a planning application for commission review for the design review and conditional use permit request. So more specifically, the conditional use permit applies to that non-conforming north wall, which is located 2 feet 6 inches from the property line where 5 feet is required. Just for the commission's knowledge, because of that wall placement, it prohibits any new window openings from going on that north wall. Similarly, the design review request applies to the roof alteration, the height increase, and the conversion to habitable space. And just to give you a breakdown of the floor plan area, the ADU is located at the front of the house. It's maxed out at 650 square feet, and it constitutes 30% of the floor area. The main home, which includes the conversion of the workshop and the garage space, is 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and is just a little over 1,500 square feet. That constitutes 70% of the floor area. So the total size of the house is 2,184 square feet. So the height is a little, it's not uniform on this house. There's a front portion of the house that's proposed to remain. That has a maximum height of 16 feet, 9.5 inches. That's proposed to remain the same. That roof pitch is not altered, proposed to be altered as part of this scope. At the rear of the house, with that garage and workshop space, it was originally a flat roof that was approximately 9 feet, 10 inches in height. With the change in roof pitch, this increases the height to 14 feet, 2.5 inches. This is the site survey that was prepared. So you can see on the north side, it's a 2.5-foot side yard setback. The south side has which is also the driveway, has a setback of just under 15 feet. The north side's 2.5 feet. This is the existing and proposed south elevation. So you can see there was the garage door there for the garage that was there. You can note in this the difference in the height. So this was the flat roof that constituted that 9-foot tall max height. And here the gable has been carried across, increasing the height from this portion of the existing home all the way to the rear of the building. This is the proposed rear elevation. It's a little bit tricky to read, but just as I mentioned before, so it was a flat roof. Looking at this existing detail, these are the gables that are closer to the front of the home. Yeah. And this is the rendering that shows the gable going all the way to the back of the home. And the entrance to the main house is proposed to be set at the rear of the home for privacy considerations. This illustration is in response to some correspondence that you received on Friday. The original plans that were submitted provided this elevation, and a revision was provided by the applicant on Thursday that includes this additional window. So this slide is intended to give you a little more context on that particular email and this new window that's been proposed on the south elevation. And then this is the north elevation. So again, you can see the flat roof here and then the gable going all the way back. Obviously, this window has been eliminated, as has this window. So these existing window openings are proposed to remain and be retrofitted with new windows. There is a lower level area basement in the house that is 491 square feet in area with a 6-foot, 11-inch ceiling height. In part because of the lack of ceiling height, as well as the space being subterranean, it's exempt from the FAR calculations pursuant to Section 2024-050A1C. This is the provision where we take the average perimeter height. So we have measurements from grade to finished floor, calculate that average out. If it's less than 5 feet, the lower level space is exempted, and so it's well under 5 feet in this case. But it's also worth noting that there's no work that's proposed in this lower level area as part of this project scope. There are 2 off-street parking spaces which are provided in the existing driveway. You may have seen this on the survey, or if you visited the site, there is a carport at the back southeastern corner of the property, which isn't in great shape, but as I understand it, it's proposed to remain. You received correspondence in your packet from neighbors who reside on the north and south side of the project. And I mentioned the email earlier regarding the inclusion of that additional window on the south elevation. The project is categorically exempt pursuant to Section 15303 of CEQA. And with that, we're recommending approval of the project. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, and we also have a number of speaker cards, so.
Okay. First, we listen to the architect, correct?
Do you mind if I ask a question of staff? Could you clarify and just go back to the elevations of the, I think it's the north elevation?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, I just want to make sure that I understand, is that the, that's the non-conforming wall with the vertical extension that we're?
That's correct.
Request to reprove? Okay. And then just in general, to get the history of this correct, this was originally approved as an administerial project?
It was originally approved as a staff-level review as part of an ADU request.
And were things such as the extension of the non-conforming wall and the height changes part of that?
They were not part of that original request.
Okay, so what was in the original request?
The original
was
request simply provided a request for the ADU to be attached to the main house and, provided drawings as it related to the ADU. There were some deficiencies in the submittal. We didn't have an as-built detail. There was some information regarding the height that wasn't provided as well.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Would the architect want to come up and talk a bit about the plans?
I'm not the architect, I'm just an associate representing the development and contractor. My name is Richard Brunel. Basically, like she said, the project was approved, the project got underway. We've got all the way through putting the foundation up and erecting the walls, and then we discovered we have some problems with the neighbors. We've done everything we can to try and cooperate with the neighbors and get everything down to approved by the city again. We just don't know where else to go from where we're at. We can't go any smaller and stay with the idea that we want. I'm anxious to hear what the neighbors have to say to see what I can do about it.
Thank you.
Because I'm curious, Mr. Brunel, how we went from what was proposed to be done, i.e. attaching the ADU to the building, to then completely rebuilding a non-conforming wall on the site.
I was hoping nobody would mention that, because no matter what anybody says, we did not reconstruct the entire wall.
What was done in your
Can I have an
opinion?
elevation of the north wall, please?
Yep. I agree.
Okay, this is the existing front area. We took down from here, well, actually from here, we took down from here, and we reconstructed this part of the wall. We did not reconstruct any portion of this wall.
Yeah.
We stayed on the exact footprint that the wall was at previously. We did not go outside of that at all. It has been 2 foot and 6 inches from the setback, well, the setback's 2 foot 6 inches, which we know is non-conforming, and we've offered to try and work that out too. We've got a proposal with the neighbors to keep that same thing. Were we to tear this all down right now, it would cost at least $50K to the owner to try and redo this. So.
Because I'm not proposing that it's to be torn down or anything. I'm just trying to figure out how you went from not doing any work on that wall to reconstructing a portion of it. How did you get from A to B?
Well, this area back here was garage, I guess, some other stuff,
Workshop.
and workshop. The wall needed to be reconstructed to get the wall height we needed, and we ended up taking that down lower. Originally, we had a 9-foot wall set up here, and it matched the wall height up here for the framing. Well, we're stepping down to 8 foot to try and cooperate with the neighbors. And basically, all we got up was framing of that wall anyway, so we're okay.
Okay. So then,
The thing that cost us is the height of the foundation, because we wanted to bring this whole section of the house to a level all the way down, floor height. And we had to come up to this level to do so.
So-
Before it was all the way down on grade, the garage and the workshop.
so then if I understand correctly, you're saying you had to reconstruct the wall because you had to change the floor height at that area, and so that dictated, okay. And was the change in the floor height part of the original
Yeah, I believe so.
submission? Is that correct?
I can check the plans.
Okay.
In the scope of work, originally, it specified leveling that floor height.
Okay.
All the way through.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess we'll open up for a public comment. You call.
So I'll call the first 3 speakers, Tim Will, Brian Higgins, and Eileen Crum. And if you could all line up at the podium, I can run the timer.
Well, I just found out about this in the last week or two. I was sort of dismayed that a project of this scope, adding more renters to an already almost overcrowded section of our block, came in under the radar, and none of us knew anything about it. fact that they tried before, and then this time it came through kind of fudging on the details, and then supposedly the construction stopped, but people were reporting that it kept on going, it sort of turned into a fait accompli, I guess. So, how can we turn it down now? Look how much we've done. I know that my other neighbors have other concerns. My concern is about street parking, because in this area, we're sort of maxed out in terms of the number of vehicles that are in the area. And this project, when you call it accessory dwelling unit, this is one whopper of an accessory dwelling unit. I walked back and looked at it, wow, that is a lot of extra people they're going to add, and those people are going to have cars. It's already problematic. And I'm all for accessory dwelling units, but I saw somewhere in your guidelines that, creative thinking about parking and stuff. I don't know what kind of creative thinking you can use, but this section of our area really can handle more cars, and the way this thing is set up, it's obviously going to attract quite a few renters. One of our neighbors, I asked her if she was coming tonight, and she said no, she was going to go work out at the Y. She was just sort of frustrated with the whole thing. She didn't think the city was going to do anything. So I hope you can prove her wrong. I'm not sure what that is exactly, but this is kind of over the top, I think. Well, enough from me. Brian knows a lot more about it than I do.
Okay.
So I have 3 minutes? Okay. Just
State your name could you state your name into the microphone?
I'm Brian Higgins. I live at 1035, which is immediately to the north. So we're on this side of the property. I'd like to express my disappointment that there wasn't any public input on this. I hope that you've read the letter that I put in here, but it was cited that by 65852.2 the project was exempt from review, but if you look at D, require the units, the D which outlines what they have to comply with, and then section 4, it says the new floor space shall not exceed 50%, and it's well over 50%. But in my 2 minutes left, so I thank the builders for trying to accommodate us. Our main concern is the increased height, because this thing is right on our property line, extends halfway into the backyard. It's really a large building. And they have got it down, but Mr. Brunel told me that first it was going to be a 1-foot pitch, and when we finally met 2 weeks ago, we were showed a plan with a 3-foot pitch, and he said at that time, well, that's a maximum, and we have to do Title 24 investigation to find out what the pitch has to be, what the minimum pitch has to be. And as of Monday, Rich, you said you hadn't looked at that yet, so I would like to know what that final height is. That's
Okay.
Okay, we don't know.
My name is Eileen Crum, and I'm a 17-year resident of 1043 Evelyn. We are the other side from Brian. I thank the commission members for listening to me tonight. I was hoping I didn't have to be here, quite honestly. I have better things to do on Valentine's Day and during my evenings, but I feel like I have to, because this has been a stressful and a frustrating process for my family, incredibly so. I want to just kind of go through the history of the project, because I think you heard a whitewashed version, and I just want to be honest here. We were not given notice, as my other 2 neighbors told us. We were told that there was nothing we could do about this, that we had no impact, we had no comments. As the project was built, it was apparent that this was huge. It was not small. The site had people who were smoking all the time. I have asthma. I haven't been out of my house in about 2 months because people were smoking continually. They were using the side yard next to my fence as a storage area. They stripped all of the stuff off the side of the fence because they put stuff up there all the time. They dug a new foundation. They didn't close off the space. The kids were in there. I spent 2 weeks chasing kids out of that space. This was not safe. This was not neighborly. This was not nice. Just being honest here. I'm not a person who gets stressed. I'm like this over this instance. That being said, I want to be a good neighbor, and I'm trying to be a good neighbor, and I'm trying to understand that they want to have a nice house, and I get that. But you know what? You moved your house up so all your windows are aligned with mine. I want the windows not to be aligned with my own. I don't want people looking in my bathroom. I don't want to have people, we have a son with cerebral palsy, we have a therapy pool in the backyard. You can see right in right now. That's really uncomfortable for us. And that's a result of raising up the foundation. So all these things have had detrimental effect to us. The impact report said there was no problem with glare. There's a ton of new windows that are raised up. There's a problem with glare. There's a side entrance that was never there. That's a problem with traffic and noise. We're losing privacy. We're losing everything. And then even after we came to sort of an agreement, I turn around and they want to keep a carport that's falling apart against my fence that is blatantly dangerous, which is underneath it right now. There are rocks, again, that the kids are climbing all over because they never bothered to move them from the old foundation. This is really frustrating. This is not fair. This is not nice. This project should really have gone forward only with the consent of the neighbors, only with the way everyone else in our neighborhood has done it, which is talking to everybody. They only talked to us when we complained. The city staff only talked to me after I called the mayor. That's not fair.
Okay, next three speakers are Dave Glasser, Bruce Howe, and Sandy Howe.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. I want to start out by saying that I'm also living at 1043 Evelyn. I'm also an employee here at the city, and I have the opportunity to work every day with these fine people over here at the other end of the podium, and I thank them for their work. And I will also state that once it became apparent that there was going to be a hearing tonight, I haven't had any further discussions because I didn't think it would be appropriate with any of the members of the staff. So, as my wife Evelyn has stated, there are clearly some procedural issues, clearly some miscommunication issues. And I will just tell you, walking out on your porch and all of a sudden seeing a huge window over the fence that there was no visual building there before is pretty jarring. I will also say that I know there are specific codes on accessory dwelling units, but it was clear from this building here that the accessory dwelling unit couldn't have proceeded without the other construction being done in the facility. So I think there was a little bit of a bait and switch in the design plans. And then the final thing is, we did have an agreement, I thought, with the builder, Rich, and the neighbors on that window. So we were very disheartened on Friday when we saw that. And thank you for sending us that information on the new plans that came in on Friday afternoon, that the window had reappeared. And it is very upsetting that now you have, instead of the fence with the privacy, you have people with windows looking straight into your bedroom window and your bathroom window. So clearly the offset was, we thought we had an agreement on that. So I would like to close on a positive note. We are thrilled that this property is being renovated because it was kind of a dump. And so we appreciate the upgrading of that facility. We just want to have something that we can all be happy with going forward. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can you go to just the side view of what's proposed? Can you just be just clear on which windows in particular?
Yes.
All of them, or?
So this was in the original proposal, the two windows here at the rear and then these windows over here. This window here on the lower detail, that's the new one that came in on Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, okay. Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is Bruce Howe. I'm the son of Sandy Howe, who is the owner of the property at 1039.
You're the owner of the property?
My mother is the owner. I'm her son.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I just, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak to the community and to the council. Just providing a little bit of context that may not have been shared already. Just generally, my mom is a retiree. She lives with my sister Catherine. They live together for health reasons and just to be closer to family. And so this house was really developed. She's renovating the house so that she can live there in retirement with my sister. And so just to alleviate like some concerns around like, a lot of tenants being there and things like that, that's very much the intention. As we grew up in the area as, future residents, again, admittedly, she's not like the most experienced developer around, but she's made every effort to try to do right by the city and do right by the neighbors. And so in terms of the home itself, it was very much in need of repair. And so she has spent a considerable amount of her life savings to renovate the place, both upgrading the cosmetic side of it and the safety side of things. And we think that contrary to some of the other thoughts here, that the changes have been pretty modest. It's stayed within the existing footprint of the home. There have not been any obtrusive changes to the outside or the inside of the house. So on balance, we feel like the changes were very modest, reasonable, and at the same time beneficial to the surrounding areas in terms of just safety and cosmetics. And despite that, we totally get it that neighbors are going to have valid concerns because they don't know what the full intention is, and some of the things that were raised today, it's the first I've heard of them. I'm really sorry that you've had some of those hardships. Yeah, that's not fair. You're right. That being said, I think my mom and the construction crew have been accommodating in terms of the different requests and concerns that the neighbors have brought up in terms of, so like, I don't think the top one was the original view. I think the top one, originally we were going to put the entrance to the main home there, and in response to neighbors' concerns, we've moved it to the rear. Same with, reducing the height of the wall. And so, I think, through a series of changes to the plans, we've addressed, to my understanding, all of the outstanding concerns of the neighbors, and with really, no kind of pushback or anything like that, right? So anyway, taken together, I just think that I hope it's obvious to the council, and I wish it were more apparent to the neighbors that we've tried to do best by everybody here, and we hope that the council can approve the plan so that we don't kind of further add to a lot of the delays and costs that she's already incurred. Thank you.
I have one more speaker card, Catherine Howe.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sandy Howe. I own this house almost 20 years. This house is built on the 50 to 100 square feet lot, okay? It's very narrow and long. It's an old house. The house is almost 100 years old. This house roof is leaking, okay? The chimney is cracking. The fireplace is cracking. The plumbing and the electrical out the deck. The garage roof is built in a flat in the beginning, so it create a leaking and a lot of problem in the garage door. Even we cannot open the garage. Okay. This existing house is around 1,300 square feet. Okay. Sit in the front, the two-car garage in the middle, and behind is the workshop. These all attached together, so around 2,000 square feet existing. The angle of going to the garage is it's difficult. It's, because driveway is not wide enough, so very hard to park in a car into the garage. So my architect spent a lot of time to study and talk to the city, research the code. So we meet the requirement to build the indoor unit. So we convert the garage and a workshop to the living space, but it still is existing square footage. Okay, it's 2,000 square feet. I have to apologize because I have not. I don't. This is very new for me. Okay, so I didn't know it caused neighbors so much problem, and they are concerned because I didn't know. I said I'm going to the city. I get a permit, then should be okay. I should build. So I didn't know the process was so difficult. Okay, so then when I doing this process, okay, during the construction, I got stopped because I have some other issue coming up. I'm retired. I have a medical issue that I needed to frequently go to the hospital to visit. So my daughter had to stay in with me, close by. It's very important for me. Okay. We are very simple. We only have 2 persons. Me and my daughter will stay there. We have 2 cars. I save a long time to do this project. I use all my savings. I'm retired. I use all my savings to do this construction. I have no experience, but I'm sick. I'm diagnosed for cancer. I'm a stage 4. So I want a peace. I want a place to live. Right now I rent a place. I want to move in a place I could stay. I'm sorry for whatever's cost, but this house I own for 20 years. I want to move into my own house. So please, I hope the councilor to understand and know my situation. Give me something I could stay in my own house. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I have one more speaker card. Alexandra Sauer.
Oh.
Get 2.
Bernier. Oh, well, you'll get called. If you have a card in, you'll be called. Mm-hmm.
There's one more, though.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Catherine, and then Alexandra.
Okay. And what's your name?
My name is Catherine Howe. I'm the daughter of Sandy Howe and sister of Bruce Howe. Thank you for taking your time, neighbors and community and council, to talk to us today. I just want to give my perspective on the project. So me and my brothers and sisters have basically born and raised in this area. I went to Cornell Elementary, Albany Middle, and Albany High School. I know the city really well. Every day after middle school, I would walk under the BART pass to the library and study there. I go to Zari's for poor boys, and I go to gelato shop next to Cornell. I even shop at Happy Produce sometimes. So it's really disheartening to see that this is happening to my mom, and we didn't expect this to be so hard, basically just to move into our own house. I am an adult now, but I feel like it is my responsibility to take care of my mom. So I wanted to live in the adjacent dwelling unit so I can raise my own family, but also stay close to my mom. So we don't expect to have extra cars. I barely drive. I got my license last year, so you don't have to worry about me driving often. Like, the car's gonna stay parked there, basically. But yeah, like, I'm a big community supporter. I'm a workshop instructor. I teach kids how to program. I used to be a kindergarten teacher, so I feel that we would be good neighbors to the community. And I'm sad to see this happening to my mom. And I see, like, the stress it puts on her, and I feel that we've been very, very accommodating to all the building plans. So if there's anything else, yeah. But I am excited to live where I grew up. So thank you.
That's okay. We'll take care of it. You'll have a chance to, if you have questions later. Okay. Mhm.
I'm Alexandra Soar, and I live at 1035 on the north side. And the thing that has concerned us the most is the height increase in the back unit and the loss of light and especially in our kitchen and we have rooms down that are lower, and we have a side yard that loses light and the kitchen loses the view. So that's the thing that we talked to the builder the most about, and they have made some accommodation, but as my husband said, we had an agreement that they were going to have their Title 24 calculations done and find out if it was possible to have a 2-foot rise rather than a 3-foot rise, and kind of disappointed that they hadn't had that done, because we had hoped that we could have it all decided tonight, you know. So that's kind of a disappointment. The neighbors this has been a rental property for as long as we've lived there, which is 15 years. And we have all assumed that it would again or continue to be a rental property because the rooms are tiny, tiny. They're like minimum the possible. Isn't that what you calculated? Anyway, but I guess that's really just making a comment, that's all.
Okay.
Is that the last? Okay. So I guess we'll close public comment and bring it to the commission for discussion.
See if there's anyone else who wants to talk. Yeah, it's fine.
Sure.
I think, yeah.
You want to add some?
In regards to Title 24, the Title 24 preparer came back with a response that he didn't think there was going to be any change. The fact is there has to be a change because the north elevation, actually the site plan.
I think I only have the site survey.
You want to see the setbacks? Okay, our north setback, which is up here, is only 2 foot 6 inches. That requires that we have no E-vents. You know, if you look up underneath here, you see these little hole vents with screen in them. There can be no E-vents on this side, which means we have to develop a different pattern, bringing the airflow through to get the proper air envelope in there. And the Title 24 guy, even though I told him this, he did not respond to that. It's all mechanical. We're just going to have to put a fan unit or something that will give that kind of airflow. Problem is if we take the trusses and we bring them down too low, we don't have enough room for ducting and all that other stuff to go through there and allow that airflow to work. I imagine that we can probably take the 3 foot down to 2.5, but we can't go an inch lower than that, and I don't want to commit to that until after we get all this resolved. Nor do I want it to delay us further, over 6 inches. It's just, we either got it or we don't have it. And that's plain and simple.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So the plans you've given us, I think, shows the height at 14 feet 9 inches. What is that assumption on? What's that based on?
That's based on an 8-foot wall.
Truss height, that sort of thing.
An 8-foot wall with a 3-foot pitch to the peak to the roof from the top plate of the wall.
Okay, so.
How it comes up to 14
So that's
foot, I don't know. Is that counting the foundation?
So I can.
And the foundation's up.
Point it. In the plan renderings, there are different heights that are marked because you do have a slight grade change. That 14.6 is at the highest point.
Okay.
So you see it here on this north elevation. It's this is the 14.6 right here. That's where it goes from the grade up.
And that's going all the way down to grade.
Got it, I see, on the north side there. Okay.
That's providing us an 8-foot wall with a 3-foot roof.
Okay. Okay.
The rest is all foundation.
All right.
And that's at the front of the building, which is pre-existing.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, in regards to this gentleman's comments about parking, back to the site plan, please. Presently, this small driveway to a carport back in the back, it used to have a garage here someplace. But we've offered to remove the carport and reduce our parking probably about here, which is actually going to be closer to 3 parking spaces than 2. But would allow the cars to come off the street so they're all the way out on the curb apron, hanging all the way out again. And that should eliminate a lot of the concerns about the parking, but we share the same concerns this gentleman does. This neighborhood's already got enough people parking in it. Where are they going to park in a couple of years? We need to have some parking available here. Doesn't make sense to tear it out and then need it tomorrow. So we want to at least reserve that we can properly park vehicles here. Other concerns? I don't think there was any, was there? Those are the 2 primary ones, the height?
The window.
Oh, the window, thank you. North elevation, please. Actually, south elevation.
That's it. That's it.
This used to be where the main entrance was going into the building.
Right.
We took this out and put a window there because we want to have a bedroom there. We lost the bedroom on the other side because we weren't able to have a window on the north side because we're so close to the setback. So we flopped the bedroom over to the other side. We don't care if we have to put obscure glass or whatever will make the neighbors happy. We will do whatever we need to accommodate the neighbors' privacy. We've offered to do that, and we'll do that. Moving the entryway all the way back here to the back was the only way we could find, the only reasonable way of accommodating the neighbors' concerns. There is nothing on the north side of this entryway that violates privacy. It's the back of the building, there's nothing there, there's no windows, no doors, no nothing. So we have made every accommodation that we can and stay within our footprint.
And in regards to the roof height of the new roof height, you talked about needing adequate spacing to run your duct lines. Are you right now proposing to just use or intending to use galvanized sheet metal, rectangular ducting, or what are you proposing to use?
I have no idea. I just know it's going to be about a 12-inch duct. I don't know exactly what material it will probably be.
Okay, so one way to address that issue then of a lower ceiling height is, have you ever heard of or looked into high flow, high velocity duct systems?
I haven't, but our EFIC guy will have to.
Okay, so that's
I thought of separate units also, separate internal units.
So, I mean, so that's, there, I guess there's, my point is that I think there's several ways to get around the issue of the ducting, because the high flow have basically a circular 4-inch diameter piping, flexible ducting, that can fit through any of those spaces, any of the opens in the truss joists. So I think that could address the issue of the ducting.
It doesn't address the issue of proper ventilation coming.
Well, have you looked at ridge vents? Have you looked at ridge vents?
That's what I was talking about earlier. We're going to have to develop a different way of breathing the air flow through there.
So again, I think your issue then well, my point is that your issue can be addressed through technology, and so that you're not limited to that 2.5 foot maximum or minimum that you're talking about. Is my point is that we can figure out ways to address these issues while still lowering the height.
Agreed. It's a reasonable expense thing also.
Yes, true.
Our original plans had this point of the roof was at 5 foot 6 inches
Right.
instead of 3 foot. And I'm offering to go down to 2.5.
And it looks like you'd already bought the trusses for 5'6". They're already on the site.
That's $10,000 after you get it all transported and everything else and all the time involved in it. Well, $8,000.
Yeah, I
And
saw
it's sitting
that.
there on the ground going to waste because we can't use it now.
I noticed that, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's something else. Our wall here used to be 9 foot tall. It's now 8 foot tall, and all of the windows have shrunk in height accordingly. And the width of this one has shrunk also. On the north elevation.
there, that's it.
This window, one of these two windows is going to be removed.
Ah.
Because it's in a bedroom that's taking too much, too much window space there, not enough wall space. So one of these two is going to be removed. Probably the one right outside their kitchen window. And their kitchen window is right down into that.
That is the window that's in question in terms of the kitchen alignment? Is that one on the far left?
Sorry?
Those are bedrooms, both rooms. That's a bathroom.
I meant the window that corresponds to the neighbor's kitchen window.
That's on the south side. This is the north side, this is the Higgins window.
Okay.
And that wall these are pre-existing. We can't put any here because they're too close to the setback. We're going to remove one of these also just to accommodate our own needs.
Now, why did you want to remove one of the windows on that bedroom on the north side?
Because the room is small and there's only so much wall space. We're actually too much window there, not enough wall space.
Well, I don't know about that, but maybe.
There's only so many ways you can turn a room to put a bedroom and a door. I mean, a bed and a door.
Right.
Or a window. They've struggled with the layout for a couple of weeks now, so.
Yeah, okay. Doesn't look that way to me, but maybe you're right. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
We may have other questions, so. Okay.
Any other responses? We let the owner or the builder talk. Okay.
Can I ask a question of?
Well, we have one comment back there.
So is it back to 4 bedrooms again?
Yes. Well, that's our intention.
Okay. Since the microphones can't pick it up, the comment was it's still back to 4 bedrooms. The intent is 4 bedrooms. In the 2 units though, right? One with 4 bedrooms and one with 1 bedroom.
Yes.
So the space that you call office on the plans will be a bedroom then again?
No, the space is called office on the plans is on the north side where we lost the bedroom. That used to be a bedroom there.
Right.
We had to lose it because we couldn't put an egress window on that wall.
So you'll have the ADU in the front with 1 bedroom, and then you would have the main house in the back with 1, 2, 3 bedrooms. Where's the 4th? Where what you call living room now will become a bedroom?
Oh, no, there's 3 plus 1. Right, it's 3 plus 1, sorry. Yeah.
There's a room that's on the north side that because it doesn't have egress, we can't allow it to be legally used as a bedroom, so it has to be used as an office space. Then, and we've included a condition of approval, condition 19C, that specifically requires them to file a deed restriction restricting the use of that room.
It's a bedroom. So you have 3, you have
4, it's 3 plus 1.
It's 3 plus 1, you're right, not 5.
Okay, 3 plus 1, okay. 3 bedrooms and an office, that's what's on the plans.
And then 1 bedroom in the ADU.
In the ADU, correct, correct.
So we're looking at the floor plan.
It's still 3 bedroom, I'm sorry.
Yes, 3 plus 1, yeah, we understand.
We understand.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to understand whether the plans are changed or not. Okay, we understand.
But there was, that new window is to accommodate a bedroom, and there's no bedroom on the.
Sir, we are recording this, and so if you want to make comments, we're going to need you to speak into the microphone.
So I can just clarify that for the commission's review. This is the bedroom here on the south side that faces into the driveway. This is the new window in question that was shown on the plans that were in the packet.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Okay. All right, and then let's close it because it gets unravel here. And
I understand that they want to have a big house. I get that. But I shouldn't have to have all the windows because the other wall is non-conforming. And that's essentially what's happening.
Say again.
The windows are on my side of the building because the other side is non-conforming, and they can't put windows over there. So that's why there's so many on our side.
Yeah.
And that doesn't
okay.
seem reasonable.
Maybe.
Right.
Maybe, maybe not. Maybe, maybe not. So, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
We agree. Okay. Thank you. So we're going to stop the public comment, bring it in. We might have to ask another question of the builder if we need to, but right now we're going to bring it to the commission for discussion. Does anyone want to start?
If no one else wants to start, I will. Okay, all right. So let's see, this project presents a lot of issues. I hope I can try to cover what my thoughts are in a coherent way here. Let's see, where to start? First of all, I think I should talk a little bit about ADUs, I think. I understand there was some confusion here. This came in as an ADU. The state of California has now told us that we should approve ADUs over the counter to the maximum extent possible. They should never come to the Planning and Zoning Commission. They should be done ministerially. That is a trend that is continuing. The legislation the governor signed a few weeks ago makes it even easier for people to build ADUs and harder for cities, more complicated for cities to regulate them. There's not a big difference between 2016 legislation and 2017 legislation, but that's what's happening. And so it's understandable to me why when this comes in as an ADU, why the staff went ahead and said, okay, we have to process it that way. But this is a complicated project. It is unusual to have the ADU in the front of the house. There's a lot of difficulty here, and particularly with the former building being built with such a small side yard setback. I looked at the design, and I have I guess a few comments to make about it. I know, let me see, where can I start? I'll start with, I guess I'll start with an easy one, with parking. For me, that's easy. I think that the plan, that the site plan we've been given that shows 2 parking spaces on the driveway and the side is fine. I would like to see the commission say that the carport has to go, should be demolished. I would like to add a condition, if we do that, that some of the concrete that is now parking be removed in the back of the lot, and that landscaping be added there so that there will be a landscaped backyard, a landscaped area where the carport is now, and some of that very, very long driveway be also removed and landscaped toward the back of the house, which will now be the front door for the main house, ironically, and going against all of my good design principles. But that will be the main entrance to the house, and I think it should have a nice landscaped area there to greet visitors who come. I don't have a problem with the 2 off-street parking spaces that are provided, and the state of California has said we cannot require parking for the ADUs because this site is within a half mile of transit, and that's it. So I don't have a problem there. With parking, I would like to remove some of the parking area, actually, and stick with the plans and provide 2 off-street parking spaces. The height of the building, we're talking here about modest things, and it may be that the commission does want to reduce the height of the building. I think it would be possible to go below 14 feet 9 inches. I personally don't have a problem with the 14 feet 9 inches. The height limit in this lot is 28 feet. We approve projects all over town all the time that are taller than 14 feet 9 inches. Most of our projects are second-story additions, and in fact, most of our projects have adjoining homes to the north and the south, or the east and the west, that are less than 10 feet away. I have to deal with it at my house, and we work it out with our neighbors, or you put landscaping in. But, that's what window blinds are for. And so I know it's a shock when new development comes in and the things change. It's always a shock to the neighbors. But it's just the way of life in Albany. The homes are really close to each other. And the way to deal with the privacy issues to my way of thinking, are and the shading issues are to figure out a way to do it. And that's what blinds are for. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for that. I hear where the neighbors are coming from, and I think that there are architectural ways to reduce that roof to a much lower slope. And I would encourage the owner to take those steps to do that and to get below 14 feet 9 inches, which is what's proposed. But I wouldn't have a problem at all approving 14 feet 9 inches on this lot, because if you were doing a second-story addition, you can go up to 28 feet. And not many people do that, but a lot of people go up to 22 or 25 feet. There's that. The windows, I've kind of already made my point there. I'm not terribly concerned about the windows. I don't think there are enough windows in this house for the interior, for the light and air that I would like to see in it. I don't like having to have that one room that is now an office without any windows at all. I understand that you want to have a blank wall there because it is for fire code reasons. There are ways around that. We've seen them on other projects, putting in tempered glass windows, special windows to let light into there. But if the owner is okay with it, then I'm okay with it as well, to have a windowless room that would serve as an office. It could serve as a good office. What I would do, and I would like to see done, is take the closet out of that room. It shows it as a closet. I don't think that room should be used as a bedroom ever. And so if it's going to be an office, then maybe you can have a small storage room in there, but I would say let's take out the closet. It's shown on the plans as having a closet. Let's see, going on. The windows on the south side, the one that was added just on Thursday and that shows up on that plans, I do not have a big concern about that. I'll let other commissioners say about that, but I don't think there are too many windows on the south side. I think the interior of the home, even with these windows, will be relatively dark. It's fairly modest there. With respect to the neighbor's privacy and all of that, I think it would be nice if we added a condition as appropriate to require that the fences, I didn't look at the fences all that closely, but this is a big change, and I think it would be appropriate to have the fences rebuilt so that certainly if the neighbor on the south side has a therapy pool there and wants to have privacy there, every step should be taken to ensure that can happen, and probably a new fence added in as a part of this project would not be overly burdensome, and work out that with the neighbor following our code. What else do I have? Let's see. Let's see. I see a question here that I wanted to get answered. Come back to that. Okay. I don't see anything else there except do you have the site plan, Ann? I had a question about the basement. You just have the survey there. I didn't understand the basement plan. There's a second stairway that okay, now slide over, I think, to your right. I think you can scroll over that way. Does it go that far on this sheet? Yes. What's that? The basement is the way it looks to me is that the basement is under the ADU, but the basement will be accessed from the main unit.
That's correct.
And what's that extra stairs, that little appendage there, I didn't see that on the site. I don't think that's, that one is the main stairs coming in, and there's a utility room down there.
That's
What's the other
interior.
one?
That's
If I
interior.
may.
Oh, interior, both those stairs are.
That's what?
Both those stairs are interior, so you wouldn't see them from the outside.
And the stair at the top of the plan is the one that's going to stay.
Okay.
And then,
okay.
yeah, and then
So
there,
is that there now, or would that be added?
So it looks like, so if we look at the existing floor plan, you
now.
can see that this.
There's that, there's
correlates
that.
to this. On the new floor plan, this correlates to that.
Okay, I understand now. All right, thank you. Mhm. That answered that question. Pardon?
Yeah.
Okay. Mhm. Yeah, it's under both units? All right, all right. Okay, I appreciate that. Mhm.
no, I think you're, at least in terms of those stairs, you're on point. Commissioner Donaldson, I would just, if we go forward with this, I would just propose that we have some kind of clarifying language that says that that second non-used stairwell is somehow enclosed so that it can't be there.
Why would we not want that used?
Well, it's basically stairs that go into a floor, into a ceiling.
Oh, I thought they were, so which one are you talking about?
So
There's
the
second-
ones right
second
next
one
to
there.
the laundry room or the mechanical room, there you go. Those aren't going to be used anymore. It's going to be a floor above it. Because if you see, there's a bathroom where the stairs would be.
Got it, right.
So I think it's just a matter of the plans being adjusted and reflecting what's going to be done. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So anyway, those are, I think those are my comments. And-
Thank you, Doug.
Yep.
So Commissioner Donaldson, can I ask you on the parking?
Yeah.
When you look at the side view, did you have a thought on how far back that would go, or are you just thinking two
I thought
spaces?
we had a site plan.
It shows on the plan, it's about to this. to
We had
where
a
the
site
old
plan,
entrance
and yeah, how far does it come back? I would say,
is. 2/3 of the way
yeah,
back?
2/3 of the way back. Mhm.
Right there, right there.
So are you proposing something different than what?
There. I like the site plan. I'm happy with the site plan. It's just that I would remove the concrete beyond that, and I'd remove the carport, so that that area should be landscaped. And then have a walkway from the parking that goes to the main entrance, which is at the rear of the house, at the rear corner.
Thank you.
And have a walkway there and have landscaping there. Have a yard. So,
I mean, if I may.
Yeah.
So I agree with some of Commissioner Donaldson's comments. I agree with you in terms of the parking. I don't have a problem with the parking reduction request, so to speak, since they will be providing 2 off-street parking spaces. I do agree, though, and think that that area should be developed more. Off the top of my head, I'm always a big fan of things like pergolas or trellises, something like that over those car spaces that can then, if you're inclined to, can be combined with landscaping in terms of some growing vines or something like that, which can create a bit of a privacy block to the neighboring building adjacent to it. And that's, I would argue, it's probably a minimal cost in terms of making a trellis or pergola over those parking spaces, and it might provide some functional shade to those areas. I also would just, in general, I would argue or ask that a landscape plan be submitted, since it's an interesting phone ring, that a landscape plan be added to the project submittal, since they are proposing to remove the existing garage, which will be opening up a lot of landscape in the backyard, and give them opportunity to try to integrate the sort of landscaping into the building design to make it a more cohesive, attractive project. In terms of the actual expansion for the ADU, I do not have a problem with that because the applicants are staying within the existing footprint. And in terms of the roof height at the back of the building, I would like to see it be as small as possible to hopefully address some of the neighbors' concerns about the height of the building. And I think there's some technological aspects that could be used, which might add a little bit of cost to the project, but I think would be able to hopefully make everybody happy in terms of a compromise. Yeah, I mean, I think it's unfortunate, the sort of history of the project, that it's got us to this point. But I would also, I'd also actually personally be in favor of removing a window on the north side and removing a window on the south side if that would appease the neighbors in terms of their privacy issues. And I believe that is one of the things that they had come to an agreement with previously. So I think at the very least, removing that window that's in question on the south elevation, I would support. And if the north side neighbor...
Isn't that a bedroom, though?
No, I believe it's to the living room.
It's a bedroom.
Oh, it is? On the south side?
It's a bedroom, yeah.
Is it possible to
think
put
it's-
opaque or a clear story or something like that?
Yeah, it could be a clerestory. Okay, yeah, for that bedroom there. Yeah, I mean, so that could be turned into a clerestory, which would be, in theory, you know, above eye height, but would still allow light to come in. But then if they need that window for egress, it's not going to qualify for that. So
Yeah, that's a good idea, and it makes a more usable bedroom, actually.
Yeah.
The high windows in the bedrooms are good.
Yeah. I think it's just
How do you deal with the exiting?
Well, that's if that is intended for egress as an egress window, then that wouldn't work. So that's one issue. So then I think we'd be going back to something like opaque glazing in the window so that it still lets diffuse light in, still acts as an egress, but can provide privacy. And depending on the height of the window, it might even just be putting opaque glass at the bottom sash of the window so that the top is still clear to allow light in, but will block the views to the neighboring project. I mean, I guess those are my comments on the project. Unfortunately, I feel like it's kind of a long list of things to be done that I'm kind of leaning towards the position that I'd like to actually see these things formalized somehow before I approve it. So I don't know. That's something for the
Well, I'm
commission.
trying to keep a list, so I maybe formulate a motion. I'm thinking that way.
Okay.
We could try that. And regarding that, do you have a number for the height? If we're trying to create a
Yeah, I
motion?
guess. I mean, I'll take the contractor's word, and I guess say at a 2.5 foot rise.
2.5 foot rise, so that would be okay.
I think
We
it
had,
might take off a foot of the.
8 inches out just from the top board to the bottom board of the truss.
So
2.5 foot has come down to a foot and something.
comes down a foot.
12 inches up in there, and now you've got to have enough room for airflow to go past it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be as reasonable as possible.
Are you?
Yeah.
Because I kind of have a little different take on this.
Okay.
I think it's an unfortunate process, but I think that the owner really has the right to develop this property into a nice house. I mean, they own the property. They have unfortunately, the way it came about, it offended a lot of the neighbors. But I really think the neighbors are being a little unreasonable, to tell you the truth. To put opaque windows in a bedroom, that just destroys a bed. Who doesn't like lie in their bed and look out a window and look at the birds? It just destroys it. Putting the entry of the house on the rear of the house when there's already in the existing plan that the door was on the side, and that just is awkward. I think it's a very awkward plan. I think the neighbors are nitpicking this plan to the point where it's becoming an ugly house, and it's unfortunate because it's going to be part of their neighborhood in the end, and it's going to be there for a long time. Instead of being kind of an attractive house, it's going to be squished down and torqued. It's not going to function well. It's not going to be very attractive. The neighbors seem to think, and sorry if I'm pushing this far, but that you own this property. You don't. You don't have. I think that they have to work with you to massage it, but you don't have really. You don't have protection as far as your views in Albany. I think it's a two-way street with the views. If they're going to put a window and they're looking into the neighbor's house, you both have to come up with a way to fix that. You can't just make the neighbor take their window out. You put a fence up or put some landscape screening or come to some kind of agreement on it, but I don't think it's a one-way street. And I'm hearing a one-way street from the neighbors mostly. They want changes. So I kind of sympathize with the owner and with the contractor who's developing that they're trying to do it. And I think what's offending everybody is the process where it came on them fast and they weren't showing the plans until later. And the contractor's scrambling to make changes in the process, maybe stating things that aren't correct because they don't have the evidence. And so it's kind of unraveling at this point. But looking at the projects we see before us, a lot of second-story houses that are much bigger than this. This is not a big house. And it was stated that this huge house is coming here. It's not very big. I think you're fortunate that they're not going 2 stories. That would really change things a lot in the neighborhood. So in some ways, this is a very modest addition. You know, and I don't really have much objections to it. In fact, I'm kind of disappointed that it was tweaked as much as it has been. That's kind of where I stand.
If I may, Commissioner Kent, what about the, I kind of agree with you in terms of the, I mean, I don't want to do opaque glazing. It's kind of a, like you said, decision by committee, which is never the best way. But what about the idea of integrated with some kind of formal structure over the carport area, like a pergola or trellis, the inclusion of landscape screening along the property line?
Yeah, I think
so. Then
that would be a great.
We can have the clear glass, so they can have the light, and then the carport combined the pergola.
The problem with that is it's going to eliminate the sun coming into the neighbor's windows. We offered to put carport structures all through there, and there's no place to put a carport structure that will not.
Well, I'm sorry, sir. The public comment period has passed. I hear your comments, but again, a pergola or trellis is an open structure with spacing that allows light to penetrate through. It isn't a solid, opaque thing. So yes, there may be some shading, but as Commissioner Kent said, everybody cannot get what they want and everybody be happy. So we have to come to some kind of compromise. Somebody's going to get a little bit of shade, but they're going to gain in privacy. Somebody's going to lose some light, but they're going to be able to have a better design project. And so, yeah, and in general, I don't like to design projects while I sit up here. That's not our job. We're here to simply review the design. And so I would just propose that something along that lines, like a pergola or trellis combined with landscape planting.
Going over the carport, you mean?
Yeah, just where those, because I think that aligns with where that window is, if I understand correctly.
Oh, well, maybe. I think a fence on the neighbor's side might fix it, 6-foot fence.
And I guess, and the reason.
The carport's way in the back.
No, I don't mean the carport proper. I'm referring to an open air structure like a pergola where the cars would be parked on the driveway. So it's something that can help aesthetically beautify a bare patch of concrete where the car is going to be parking, while at the same time adding a little bit of privacy to both properties. And so when I say carport, I'm sorry, I don't mean the actual carport. I'm just talking about possibly a wood structure, 12 inches on center joists that allow light through, but it'll still provide a little bit of shade, and then vines or something else can grow on it to make it a little more pleasing.
Yeah, well, that would be wonderful, but I think it's a big item to push on them, yeah. The way you describe it sounds wonderful.
That's my thoughts. I don't know.
Val?
I agree with Commissioner Donaldson's. The height is not very high. I mean, it's 14 feet. So if I wouldn't necessarily want to push it much lower, unless that's where everyone wants to go. I like some of the design solutions you had about shortening the driveway. I'm open to all kinds of suggestions on the privacy. I hear what you're saying about not wanting to put opaque glass in there, but if there's some design solution, whether it's a fence or landscaping, I mean, it's a pretty narrow area there. I mean, the trade-off is privacy for the neighbor versus light. So maybe we get some input from them. The only other design thing that I'm concerned about, and maybe you have some suggestions, is that if the entrance to the main part of the house is in the rear, I'm always concerned with ADUs, which are usually in the back, that there's some way from the street that you can read how to get to the main entrance. So there's got to be some kind of design treatment that as you're standing in the driveway, you can read that there are two entrances here.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know, my concern about having a pergola or something, depending on how it's designed, it might block that visibility.
Yeah.
That's a good thought. And they do have to get a new address assignment, right? And so there's been a new,
There'll be two
two
addresses for the
addresses there,
property.
and sort of two mail facilities, mailboxes or drops or something, okay?
But it seems like there has to be some design treatments that you can just
Yeah.
intuitively read that there's an entrance back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be
Yeah.
awkward.
So. Well, I think some of the suggestions you had in terms of the walkway would be helpful too. It kind of
it definitely needs that. I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, I think a landscape plan might help in that sense, where we could actually illustrate some of these things like materials and colors to call out that path. But
So do you think you might have enough to pull
We have several choices here. We could continue it and ask them to work on the plans and come back. I'd rather not. I'd rather see if we can approve it. So I'll make a motion, and then you folks can amend it if you see fit, and we'll see what we can do. So I'll move approval of planning application 18011, a conditional use permit and design review for 1039 Evelyn Avenue. I'll move approval of the staff report and conditions therein with some modifications. I would require removal of the closet from the office. I would move for clerestory windows or opaque glass on the bedroom. I think it's the only bedroom on the south side. I would move that the carport be removed and that the concrete behind the designated parking spaces be removed and replaced with landscaping, and that the landscaping should highlight the main entrance at the house, which is at the rear. I would move that new fences be built, be constructed around the side and rear yards after consultation with the neighbors, I think. I think, do I need to move then that is there an extra staircase from the basement or not? Something have to be blocked there?
yes, the non-used. I know, but unfortunately,
the unused staircase should be blocked or
removed,
disabled.
Yeah.
So I would add that to the motion, and that's all.
Okay, can I make some pushback on some of those things? I think if we're going to put the fence, then you don't need the opaque, or if you're going to have a fence on the south side, we probably don't need the opaque or clear story window in the bedroom. It's 6-foot-high fence.
Yeah, well, but I'd let that be. I'd leave that let that work out with the neighbors. Maybe the neighbors don't want, their house is only 2 feet from the property line too. Maybe they don't want a new fence there.
Well, okay, then maybe that's one or the other, but I don't think.
It's one or the other.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things, though, is that I don't think the clerestory window would work because they need the window for egress.
Right.
Okay, so delete the clerestory window then.
Is it possible to hear from
Opaque
the
glass it would have to be, and I'd say opaque on the bottom panel, on the bottom only. And I'll do that reluctantly, because I think that blinds can work. Mm-hmm. So.
Regarding,
I mean, there's a trade-off between kind of privacy on the south side versus them getting light.
okay, let's
Keep going.
keep going. I really like the landscape at the back portion, but I'm wondering if we can still turn that entry so it does face the drive, even though it's in the back corner, still faces the driveway, rather than have to loop around the back. Is that?
It's on the, right on the corner, it
Oh, it's both
faces.
sides.
It's both
Okay,
sides,
good,
faces
great.
both sides,
I
it's
thought you had
open
to-
there, yeah.
I thought you had to circle into the back.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
It is simply coming up as an entrance.
Excellent, great.
It's not great, but I think
Yeah, it's better than,
it's acceptable.
better than I was picturing. Concrete, replace new closet either, yeah, sure, doesn't. So my only issue was requiring the opaque, so one of the other fence or the opaque. I guess the neighbor, you can talk with the neighbor. Unless you want to get that decided now?
So the motion would leave that open?
Pardon me?
Motion will leave it open whether it's
Opaque window or a fence?
to be discussed with the neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you think we can resolve it now.
Say that again?
Unless you think we should resolve it now.
Sure, yeah.
Neighbor to the south, would you prefer a fence or opaque window? Yeah,
Okay,
actually, yeah.
yeah. Now,
Actually,
now, I still want the fence from that, in their backyard, I still think that fence should be examined. I mean, the rest of the fence, so back at the rear of their house, I think that that we should have a fence from the rear of their house to the rear property line, replaced at their option.
Right, and so I kind of jumped there because I think it's, again, it's the owner on this side who has to make the decision about the opaque. So,
No.
Yeah, we
Oh,
can't.
on the north side?
No, the owner of the house.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be told they have to have an opaque window in the.
Oh, I see. Well, sure they can. Yeah, absolutely they can. We can tell them whatever we can tell them to.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
We
I
can tell
don't.
them to have
I
a
don't-
flat roof if they want.
well, I don't think it's fair.
That's, yeah, no.
We
They have
could,
to- they
yes, we
have to
could do
go
that.
with
Well,
what we
I'm
say.
not going to do that. I don't, I can't imagine being a bedroom with an opaque window. It sounds like a prison. Yeah, so it's one or the other, so the neighbor's going to get their privacy. Right, okay. So I think let's leave it that way, one or the other. Okay. Any comments on Doug's list?
No, I think that's, and how does everybody feel about the lack of a landscape plan? Are we okay with that?
We could have it, we could require that it be submitted to staff.
Yeah.
Mhm, that'd be good. Okay. A landscape plan submitted to staff. I'll put that in the menu. Mhm.
So I guess you could read it one more time, Doug, and we can.
Actually, I'd like to read it, just
yeah, that'd be
to make
great.
sure.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so Doug moved approval with the following. Require the removal of the closet from the office in the main portion of the home. The south side, the bedroom that faces the south side shall have opaque glass on the the bottom sash. The carport shall be removed, as well as the concrete, and replaced with landscaping. Landscaping should help with the rear entrance, defining the rear entrance. New fences around the perimeter, side and rear. The unused staircase in the ADU should be removed, and landscape plan to be submitted to staff at the time of building permit submittal.
I think you said the opaque window is a must, and I think we were saying it's either opaque window or fence.
Okay.
Right?
But there is a portion that I think Commissioner Donaldson, beyond that he wants to make sure there is a fence.
Yeah.
Being this, if I can.
On the south border.
Yeah.
Oh, so.
The south border, in the backyard. I don't remember, I didn't go back there. I don't know what's
Oh, right,
back
okay, the
there,
fence from the.
Like back of the house.
From the back of the house to the back property line.
Property line.
As I understood it, though, around
When
the.
you tear down the carport,
Yeah.
there's probably be a void there, and I'd like to make sure that it gets fenced.
Okay.
So you don't want perimeter fencing just on the south side and in the rear yard? So in other words, the north side wouldn't have any fence?
I would say, I'd say if the neighbors want it, then there should be perimeter fencing on the south side, the rear yard, and the north side. Mhm. There's a large, there's a nice backyard on the north side. It's a beautiful tree, yeah. Okay, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's been approved.
Motion has passed.
Just
The application
Appeal
has been
period.
approved.
It has.
And
Appeal
just
period.
a reminder, there is a 14-day appeal period.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. So you have, if someone appeals it to the city council in 14 days, then you'll have to deal with that. Otherwise, if not, then our decision is final. And you understand what we've done.
And please do not remove any store poles or anything like that until after the 14-day appeal period. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So next on the agenda is new business.
Okay.
The new state housing law summary.
Yeah, so in your packet, we provided you just a quick snapshot synopsis of all the housing laws that were passed at the state level and went into effect at the beginning of the year. So just for your informational purposes, so you have that as a reference point.
Can I make just a couple comments? This is for discussion, or are you going to go through these?
I wasn't planning on going through it, just more to acknowledge that it was part of the packet, and we can certainly discuss it.
My understanding, this is just for discussion or just for comment here. On SB 35, my understanding is a couple things. One, many cities in the Bay Area actually would fall into this new regime because we haven't been building enough housing. That's what I've been told. I don't know specifically about Albany. And the second thing is, if you fall into this new regime, I believe the units don't have to provide parking, or there's no parking maximum.
I think that's correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. I think that's right, yeah.
So just be aware of that. And then the other thing, and I think one reason that Commissioner Jennings had requested something like this is we were talking about the impact fees.
That's correct.
And so just something to think about with AB 1505 is, we had been going down the path of thinking about an impact fee, but now inclusionary zoning is back on the table. And it really does seem like the commission should kind of, not right now, but at some point just weigh what are the benefits of one path versus another path. It seems to present a new opportunity.
So I don't know, staff, if you don't know.
One last thing, it's not specifically in here, but I do believe that MTC and ABEG are starting the next already planned Bay Area process, which on an 8-year cycle, this is like the new RENA piece. So, get ready. I know it's often very stressful at the local level, but they're about to re-engage on that.
That's right.
And I think with some of the new laws, it changes the dynamic a bit, and I don't quite understand yet how, but, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So, you might know, or may not know, I have a term contract with Berkeley, and I do zoning permits with Berkeley. Well, Berkeley hired me to help the planning department figure out how to implement these 15 bills. Oh, wow. So in the last month, I've had 40 plus billable hours writing memos to the planning manager in Berkeley about
You're our expert
these
now.
bills. So
Yeah.
I'm not an expert. It's so confusing, and I don't even know what's going on. But my focus has been, how is it going to affect their particular zoning regulations and all of that. For example, I looked at their ADU ordinance and said, you don't need to do much with your ADU ordinance because you're already really close to meeting the new regulations. I guess I'll make a couple of comments. First of all, this year, there's money available for planning departments to work on this issue. And the first year, that's money going into planning. And I don't know.
SB2.
Pardon?
Under SB2, I believe.
Under SB2.
Yeah.
And so this is the time, now's the window for the planning department to sort of figure out if there's some grants we need to apply for or to help us to redo the zoning ordinance or modify the zoning ordinance if necessary, that sort of thing. So that's one thing I would say.
Sorry, Doug, which might be a good fit for Solano or San Pablo.
Yep, that's right. It could be. It could be. The SB 35 thing applies to affordable housing projects, and in Berkeley, I think that that they'll be, what it is going to happen, what potentially could happen is a developer could come in and say, I'm going to build affordable housing. Susan Friedland could come in and say, I'm going to build this affordable housing project. I'm going to build it on this site, and I want a ministerial permit. I want an over-the-counter permit for these 50 units of housing that have a density bonus and that might be 50 feet high, et cetera, et cetera. And that is putting shutters in planning departments all over the place, and including Berkeley, and it could happen, and we don't have any control over this. What do we do with this? I don't think that's going to, Berkeley is going to be able to wiggle out from under it a lot of places because of some of their area plans. There's a lot of discretionary approvals that are required that they can say, they'll be able to say your application isn't complete until you do this. The completion process of the application thing is going to take a long time. And then once it's done, then they might, if it's over 75 units, then they have 180 days, and so they'll probably be able to say, well, why don't you just come in as a straight zoning application, and we'll process it that way, and you'll get it just as fast.
Doug, I just want to know, it's not like you can put a high-rise in an area that's zoned for 4 or 5 stories. You have to be within the...
You have to be within the zoning envelope, but that could happen here because you do have to have density bonuses. You're allowed to have density bonuses. So we could have a pretty big project here.
Does the density bonus let you go above the zoning?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
Absolutely, they do. And
Doug, are you working on any of the density bonus applications in Berkeley right now that are pending?
no, I'm not. I have done some. I've done the ones down by University in 5th and 6th, not doing any right now. And
So-
they all went above the height limit.
Yeah, so just like to give the commission some context, if you walk from here down to Gilman, there's the McDonald's at the corner of Harrison, and there's a vacated site directly across the street Church's Chicken.
Oh, yeah.
It's proposed to be a 6-story mixed-use residential
Yeah, I don't know.
building,
I
and
didn't know
their sign indicates that they've applied for a density bonus, so.
I didn't know that. And McKevin Cadillac site is going to be a big project. I don't know how big, but it's a big site. So the state is really pushing it and to push housing. And if there's the other bill puts a ballot measure in November for affordable housing funding. And the way I see, and this was in the NAVE report, and the Myers-Nave report, is that they said there could be a connection there. So if that measure is approved, then I would suspect that very quickly after that, suddenly there'll be funding for affordable housing. And then affordable housing developers are going to come in to cities quickly and say, we're going to do an SB 35 project. And we have the money. They'll then have the money after November, if that passes. So I don't think we need to be prepared for SB 35 too much now, but next year, it could be a real factor in our area from all along the San Pablo corridor. And I'm sure El Cerrito, Berkeley, and probably Albany too.
I heard anecdotal stories about SB 167, that's on our list, the anti-NIMBY law, and that I think similar to what you're saying in that I haven't read the actual language of it specifically, but my understanding is that it basically makes it very hard for planning and zoning commissions such as us to disapprove housing projects.
Correct.
And even more so to restrict housing projects to our existing height limits when the project is within a certain distance of public transit, which would affect all of Solano Avenue and San Pablo Avenue. And so it basically gives them much more freedom in terms of the restrictions that we have for housing and or for heights and whatnot.
Correct.
Based on that.
Correct.
This is kind of strange, but could...
Again, that's a very complicated law, the ADD, whatever it's called. I can't remember. It's a very complicated law, but yes, that is true. And Berkeley has had a project that they wanted to approved at X number of units, which was below the amount that the zoning ordinance allowed, and it was in South Berkeley somewhere. and the neighbors were really opposed to it, and it went to the city council, and they cut the units, and then they were sued, and they'll probably lose because of that law.
Was that the Haskell Street project?
Pardon?
Was that the Haskell Street project? or-
Yes, that's it, that's the name of it. And I think the city attorney expects that I don't think they're very optimistic about being able to win it based on this law. It would also mean that so that would mean we would be restricted under that from cutting units out, from making say we had a project come up for one of our housing element sites, and we'd have to, and they want it for a certain number of units, and we think for design review reasons, it should be smaller. We wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
Just two more comments. I mean, we all know that there's a housing crisis, and so that was kind of the rationale for the state having this package. In the Bay Area, the numbers I've seen since 2010 is like our region has created 11 jobs for every housing unit. So
Yeah.
it's just hugely out of balance.
Thing, yeah.
And then the second thing, it was just interesting tonight, slightly different issue, but on this ADU one that we tackled, it did come up. State law was passed, it trumps, it's not out of our hands. In some ways, that's not a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing.
I mean, it does kind of put forward what the state
Yeah.
objective is
Yeah.
and goals.
Is it possible that since it has to do with transit connections, would communities try to push out AC Transit, I mean, and if AC Transit changes their line, that's gonna have a big impact on.
I've never heard of that. I know Berkeley looked at it and said, we're going to just say our entire city is covered by transit, and so that every lot in town does not require parking.
I'm thinking of
for
Orinda,
ADUs.
Lafayette, Walnut Creek.
They said, we have enough transit, so we're all within a half mile of transit, and so we are never going to require parking for an ADU.
I would say that is an issue that's been raised on the newest Wiener proposal. Some have opposed it because of that fear. It'll make it harder to get transit projects approved.
So people are thinking that, yeah.
Some people, like the Sierra Club.
Repercussions of it, yeah, right, okay.
But that's on something that hasn't passed yet. I think it's 827.
827.
The other big law was overturned the Palmer decision on inclusionary housing. So now inclusionary housing can be done in rental projects, and it was a court ruled that you couldn't do inclusionary housing in rental projects. So Berkeley had an inclusionary ordinance that they had just stopped enforcing, and now they can enforce it.
Thank you for providing the report.
Yeah.
That's interesting stuff.
Yeah. It's going to be, and this bill, the Wiener bill, which I understand, Michael Barnes told me Nancy Skinner is a co-sponsor of that.
Yes.
So, and she represents us. That really is pretty draconian as far as limiting the powers of local planning commissions and the ability of local staff to do much other than just approve housing projects. Yeah.
Good evening. Just so you know, on the city council agenda on Tuesday, it's Tuesday because of the three-day weekend, there is on the consent calendar a letter opposing to that legislation, the SB, what is it?
827.
867 or 827.
Whatever,
Yeah.
right. Just want to let you know. So if you wanted to, because it's not on your agenda tonight, you probably can't take action as a group, but if you as individuals wanted to comment for the city council.
Okay.
Do they have the item on their agenda, or they just received a letter that's in the packet?
There is a draft letter as part of their packet that they'll vote on.
From the city council?
Yes.
I see.
Okay. Is our design review guidelines on that?
Yes, they're on
agenda?
Tuesday.
Okay, good. Okay. Maybe I'll try to go to the meeting then.
Well, I think, is that it? Any more?
I don't have anything else under new business. But under announcements, so our next meeting is canceled, so our next regular meeting would be March 14th. The other announcement that was not on the agenda tonight is Commissioner Bonatti's last meeting.
Oh, really?
Down from the
Oh.
commission. So,
Oh, yeah?
I wasn't actually sure if there was a late February meeting, so I guess it's
This is your last meeting? I think there's one more.
The second they
There's
make me
no-
sit next to you, you leave.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
I see how it goes.
Oh, okay, well.
Away just in time.
Jeez.
I've really enjoyed this. I've actually learned a ton on here from all of you and through the process, so thanks to everybody.
We're going to
Thank you
miss
for your service.
your kind of the knowledge you have is very unique. We're going to miss that, yeah.
Well, I think we've had a good balance of different expertise.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, but without you and now it's.
So a new commissioner then too, oh, wow, jeez.
yeah, so the pursuant to the Maddie Act, the posting is out there. So if you know anybody who's interested, encourage them
There's
to.
no one in line yet?
No, yeah, by law, we have to do a 14-day public notice. So if you know somebody who's interested, they can go to the city's website and apply.
Oh.
So you won't be at the next meeting, then this is it?
This is it.
Oh, okay.
I may reserve the right to come back and speak as a general citizen. So.
We're going to see you at the next meeting with your House edition, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Val, for your service to
Yes,
our community.
I've enjoyed it.
Well, that concludes my first meeting as chair. So
Okay, good job.
thanks for helping me along, guys. Appreciate it. And there's no gavel, so that's the end.
We do have a gavel, and in controversial meetings, you want to have it.
And he wants a parade, too, if you can work that out.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I won't take it personal that you're leaving the second I sit next to you, but.
You haven't actually made it on this side, have you?
No, I haven't.
I guess stage right? Is that
Yeah, I'm
what
just
you
gonna
call
like
it?
take it.